Chavches Amud Base at the Mishnah, about a quarter of the way from the bottom of the page. Psilas abeget shekipla v'lo hivava. So if you have a thread or a section of a garment that you folded and you turned into a cloth, into a wick, but you had not scorched it yet. So it's not a wick yet in the sense of that it's prepared. So Rabbi Lezer Omer Tameyahi ve'emadlikim ba. Rabbi Lezer says that will remain, that will be susceptible to Tumah, remains a garment, and it's not yet considered that you've removed its name garment and turned it into a wick, and therefore it's still susceptible to Tumah, and therefore, and he says you may not use it for lighting on Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva Omer Tahari. Rabbi Akiva says it is tahor, meaning it's no longer a garment, even though that it's a small piece of cloth from a garment. It's no longer a garment. And you are allowed to light with it on Shabbos. You can use it as a wick for your Shabbos candles. So the Gemara is going to explain three interpretations as to what the machlokes is in regards to Shabbos, why you can't use it for Shabbos, and what is the basis of this machlokes of the garment remaining this cloth that you've turned into a wick by sort of folding it and twisting it into itself, whether it counts as a garment or not. So Bishlam Inyan Tumah, the Gemara says, in regards to the name of Tumah, or the matter of Tumah, of whether or not it has the qualities of a garment and it retains its vessel name and is susceptible to Tumah. So there, Bahapli, this is the basis of machlokes. The Rabbi Eliezer Savar Kipul Einamoil. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that the fact that you folded it and rolled it into itself to create a wick out of this piece of cloth does not yet suffice as having turned it into a wick. It's still a piece of cloth because you can unroll it, unfold it, and it'll count as a piece of cloth, as a patch or whatever it may be. And therefore, it does not count as having lost its garment or piece of cloth status, and it's still susceptible to Tumah. And therefore, it retains its original halacha. And Rabbi Kiva says, no, the fact that you folded and turned it into a wick does suffice, and therefore you've nullified its value as a garment. However, in regards to lighting it, but my plea, what's the basis of the machlokes? Why would Rabbi Akiva say you are allowed to use it as a wick for Shabbos, and Rabbi Eliezer say that you may not? So Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Shai, in the name of Rabbi Shai, v'chein Amar Rabbi Barava, also Rabbi Barava said this, Hacha begimel gimel mitzimtzarmas askinan, ubeyantiv shachalis berev Shabbos askinan. He says, you know what the Mishnah is talking about? It's talking about a specific question in regards to Shabbos that comes immediately after Yantif. And the question is preparing or lighting your Shabbos candles with something that may be muktzah on Yantif. And that's really the question. So like this year in Chutz La'aretz, where the second day of Pesach goes directly into Shabbos. And so you want to light your Shabbos candles, and you want to prepare it, and you want to use a wick. And the question is this is muktzah or not? So a little bit about muktzah as we've talked about this a little bit in the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon of muktzah, how broadly or how narrowly muktzah is defined. And one of the aspects of muktzah that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon disagree about is a concept called nolad. Nolad is something that changed its status, its usage on Shabbos, and went from one primary use to losing that ability to be that use and can only be used for something else. Classic case is a vessel, a earthenware vessel that broke, a glass vessel that broke. So now I can't use it for what it was meant for. So I had a bowl, and it was a soup bowl, earthenware, and it broke, and now I have shards. Now shards have a use. We don't tend to use it so much, but the shards had a use. They would use it for covering open vessels. They didn't have caps. And so you had an open vessel, so you would use a shard and put it on top, and that would keep it covered overnight. Other uses that they would have, typically out with shards, but it was no longer the original usage that it had. So that's considered a nolad. It became a new vessel, or it lost its original intentional function, intentioned function, and now only can be used for something else. So that's shivrei kelim, and it's considered nolad, born, a rebirth on Yantif or Shabbos, and nolad on Shabbos would be muksa. So to nolad and Yantif. So the basis of the machlokas is based on the machlokas of Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon of whether or not there's muksa in such a scenario. So we're dealing with, it's Yantif. In preparation for Shabbos, you want to light candles, and we're talking about a garment that's exactly 3 by 3. And since it's 3 by 3, if it diminishes any bit, it's no longer a garment. It's no longer susceptible to tumah, but more than that, it's no longer able to be used as a patch or a kerchief. And if so, at the beginning of Shabbos, it was a kerchief or a patch. And now that you're folding it up and you're twisting it and you're making it into a wick, it no longer is going to be its original use. It'll have lost that, and you're creating a new thing. At what point? Do we say as soon as you intend to make it a wick and you turn and fold it and twist it to make it a wick, it's lost its original use? Well, then that happened before Shabbos, before Yantif, and so there's no nolad. It wasn't born. It didn't become a new vessel or a new object on Yantif. However, if you say that the fact that you twist it and fold it does not make it a wick yet, and it still retains its original value as a kerchief or a patch, and now you scorch it and you light the fire, immediately it's diminished from what it was, and you're creating a new nolad, a new vessel on Yantif. And when you continue to handle this wick to make sure that it's lit well, you will be handling muksa, and that's the problem. So to review, we're talking about specifically on Yantif, and the concept is that it still retained its garment status on in spite of the fact that you've twisted it into a wick, because you can untwist it, it's just folds. But as soon as you singe it, as soon as you light it, it will now diminish to less than the size of its original minimum 3 by 3. And now you've turned it into shivrei kelim, broken vessels, just a part of a vessel, and you continue to handle it. So that's muktzah. Udekuli alme islu Rabbi Yehuda, and they both, the Gemara says, Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim agree, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Elazar agree to Rabbi Yehuda that there's a concept of muktzah. Dama masikim bekelim, that say you're allowed to light a fire with wood vessels on Shabbos. So you had a wooden spoon, and you need wood for your stove fire. So you can use your wood spoon because it's a vessel, it's not muktzah. And on Yantif, you're allowed to increase fire. But you're not allowed to use a broken wooden spoon that broke on Yantif. The reason is because it's muktzah, like we said, it no longer has its original use. And so you can't use it for another permissible use, which is putting wood into the fire. You're not allowed to do that because you are using a muktzah item. Udukuli alme isluhu de ula, and everybody will also agree to the concept of ula. The ama ula hamadik tzarach sheyadlik barova yotze. And we said it's not enough to just light the candle for a second. You have to light it so that enough of it is going to burn. You have to have a majority of it catch fire. We saw this beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to handle it on Shabbos and Yantiv. So Rabbi Lezer, whose opinion is kipulena moil, that the fact that you've folded it or twisted it into a wick does not create a new thing, and therefore it still retains its vesselhood, its original kerchief or original patch status. Therefore, as soon as you light it is when you're creating the new status. Havale shever keli. At that point, it's a broken vessel because it's no longer 3 by 3 because you've burned some of it, and yet you still have to handle it in order to continue lighting it. So And therefore, when you continue lighting this wick, you are dealing with a muktzah. And as we just saw, you're not allowed to light a muktzah. You're not allowed to use a muktzah wood in your stove on Shabbos, on Yontif. However, Rabbi Kiva is of the opinion, no, as soon as you twisted it, folded it, it's no longer a garment. It's no longer a patch. At this point, you've turned it into a wick. And it doesn't have the a vessel name on it. And therefore, already prior to Yontif, when you made it into a wick, it was already a new vessel. Therefore, when you're lighting it on Yontif in preparation for Shabbos, you are lighting something that is just a piece of wood, because it's a piece of flax, a piece of linen. That's the first version of explanation of the Mishnah. So again, the Mishnah says one halacha in regards to Tumah, that as soon as you fold it, does it lose its status as a garment or not? Rabbi Eliezer says it does not, and therefore it's still susceptible to Tumah. Rabbi Kiva says it does, and it's no longer susceptible to Tumah. And similarly, what follows is that on Yontif, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it was originally a vessel, and when you singe it and when you start the fire, it loses its vessel status if it's exactly 3x3. And therefore, you can't continue lighting it because you're lighting with a muktzah item, is something that you're not allowed to handle. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, it already lost its status prior, and therefore, when you are now continuing to light this wick, you're not dealing with a muktzah because it's not a nolad, it's not something new. Amar Rav Yosef, Haine de Tanina. So Rav Yosef says, by this I understand something that I learned and I never understood. There was a brisa that said, we're talking about something that we learned in yeshiva, that there was a brisa that specifically speaking about something that is 3x3 exactly. Gimel mitzvot tzamas. But I didn't know in regards to what halacha. So the Gemara says, now I understand it. I understand that we're talking about lighting a wick on Shabbos, on Yontif, in preparation for Shabbos. We're lighting this wick that's exactly 3x3, and our halacha is going to be this question of whether or not a wick made of a piece of cloth that's exactly 3x3, whether or not it's going to have a din of nolad or not. Now, the Gemara says, and since he's saying this, Rabbi Barava is saying that our Mishnah, both Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Eliezer, are talking about the muktzah of nolad, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we see that the halacha he holds is like Rabbi Yehuda. So Gemara says, is that really true? I mean, Omar Rabbi Barava, did he say that? Omar Rabbi Barava, but Rabbi Barava said another halacha. We're on Chav Tes Amud Aleph at the top, we're 29a at the top. He said a halacha that would seem to contradict the muktzah item, because we learned Nachri Shechaka Kav Bebikas Yisrael. If a Jew has a log, a piece of wood, and a non-Jew digs in and hollows out some to create a receptacle in this log, Masika b'Yontif, you're allowed to use it as firewood on Yontif, even though that he created a vessel, right? Now, if he did so in the non-Jew's vessel, it's for sure not no. It's his own vessel. But even if he did it in a Jewish vessel, in a Jewish log, in a Jewish-owned log, it would be considered permissible as firewood. Why would Rabbi Barava say that? If he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, this should be nolad and it should be muktzah. And as we learned, you can't use muktzah as your firewood. The Gemara says you're right. He really holds that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, and there is no muktzah of nolad. You know what's going on? He's saying, according to Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Akiva, he says, you, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Akiva, you are of the opinion that this would be a muktzah matter, and the question is only whether or not it's already lost its cloth status on account of that you turned it into a wick. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda. You, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Akiva say that. But he himself, Rabbi Barava, does not follow that opinion. He follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that there is no muktzah of nolad. Fine. So that's the first interpretation of the reason of why there would be a problem on Shabbos using for your Shabbos candle a wick, according to Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Kiva says it's not a problem if the wick is made up of a cloth that had been folded or twisted into a wick. Rava Amar Hainu Tamid Rabbi Eliezer. Rava says no, the reason is something else. It's not specifically talking about a Friday that happens to be Yontif, and the question is of whether or not it's lost its status of a vessel and therefore it's muktzah or not. The reason is something else. The reason is you're not allowed to use a cloth or a shmata or a rag that has not been singed prior, because it's not going to burn well. And this is true for about any Friday. You always have to first start the fire on the wick in order so that it burns well. It's interesting in the halacha that the Mishnah says that the mitzvah, as we're going to see here in our Mishnah, in our parak, that the mitzvah of lighting candles on Shabbos, for Shabbos, is a mitzvah specifically for the woman of the household, if there is one. Obviously, the mitzvah is for the household to have a candle, but if there's a husband and a wife, the wife has the mitzvah of lighting the candle, but the preparation of the candles is actually a mitzvah on the husband. And in that preparation, Rabbi Kiva says the halacha is that he should singe the candles, the wicks, in order to prepare it so that it'll light easier. And this is based on this. This is the concept here, that you have to first singe the candle in order to, that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Even Rabbi Kiva says you don't have to, but it does make it better, and it is a hidur mitzvah, makes the mitzvah better in preparation for Shabbos. So the Gemara says, okay, great. So that's the machlokas of whether or not you must have the wicks singed beforehand in order for it to light better or not. So well, then we're back to the question that Rabbi Yosef had. He remembered learning that some brisa, some halacha, is pertaining to a 3x3 exact cloth, but he doesn't remember in regards to what matter. What matter are we talking about? In regards to what halacha is that? Le'inyan tuma. That's in regards to tuma. The Tanan we learned Gimel al Gimel. Sha'amru chutz min hamelel. There's one opinion that says, so we're talking about a three finger by three finger piece of cloth. It's going to be used as a patch. Now, how big is that 3x3? Is it exactly 3x3, or it really needs a little more than 3x3? Because in order to make a patch, you have to fold in the edge a little bit and sew it down. Otherwise, it's going to fray. And so when we say 3x3, are we talking about an actual usable 3x3, where you have to then have 3x3 and a bit on each side so that you can fold it in and that it won't fray? And that's the typical way of sewing. That's the first opinion. Chutz min hamelo, we're talking about 3x3 besides for that fold that tailors use. Divrei Rabbi Shimon, and the Chacham say no, 3x3 is exact, and that's what he remembered learning, and he didn't remember in regards to what. And that's the halacha, that 3x3, even exact, is going to count, because people at home may actually not care so much, and they may use the patch, even if it's just 3x3. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. So the Gemara is going to analyze this halacha of Rav Yehuda of not using a muktzah, a vessel that broke on Shabbos, on Yontif, as firewood, because it's a muktzah of nun. So Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Masikim bekelim and Masikim b'shivrei kelim, divrei Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says that you can use vessels, so a wooden spoon, a wood plate. You can use wood vessels as your firewood on Yontif, but you may not use a broken vessel, because, as we said, that broken vessel that broke on Yontif is in Nolad. It's something that lost its original use and it attained a new use as firewood on Yontif, and that's Nolad, and so it's going to be muktzah. Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Shimon says you're allowed to. Similarly, the machlokes goes on. Masikim b'tamarim, you're allowed to use dates as your fuel. Take a few dates, throw it into the fire, and that'll add fuel. Achlan, however, if you ate the dates and now all you have is the pit, ein masikim b'gari name, you can't use the pit as its seed. Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Shimon matir, and Rabbi Shimon says, no, you're allowed to use even the pit. As we saw before, in the bottom of Chav Ches Amud Beis, we saw just before, that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon disagree in regards to any muktzah, using muktzah as a fire source. So to over here, you can't use a broken vessel that broke on Yom Tov according to Rabbi Yehuda, and you can't use the pit according to Rabbi Yehuda because the pit was not a pit before, was not fire wood beforehand, because a pit is needed within the fruit. The fruit is containing it, and since it's necessary, so you can't have prepared it before Shabbos. You can't say, well, no, I know that I'm going to have pits before Yom Tov, and so it's not a new thing. No, it's a new thing because beforehand it was a part of the fruit. Even more, he says, masikim be'agoizin. You're allowed to use walnuts as your fuel. Put it into the fire. Achlan, however, if you ate them, you can't use the shells as firewood. Different Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Shimon Mater, again, Rabbi Shimon says, no muktzah applies to nolad. And yes, these things change status in middle of Yom Tov from being a shell to protect fruit to an empty shell, which is just a waste and therefore can be used for fuel in a fire, or pits that were a part of the fruit and now it's not a part of fruit, or a broken piece of wood that broke on Yom Tov. All of them says no muktzah. And I need all three cases to tell you the Yashmina Kamaisa, because if I had only told you the first case of a broken wood vessel, like a wood spoon, maybe only there Rabbi Yehuda is strict, because at first it was a vessel and lost it, and now it's no longer a vessel, now it's a broken vessel. Then that's a real new item. And that's why he said it's prohibited. Aval tamarin, but by dates. It was a date pit beforehand. It's a date pit now. It was never really edible. It was just a part of the fruit, but it was originally a pit and it remained a pit. Still, he says, no, he says that's still considered a muktzah. And even pits, there at least it's a part of the fruit and it's contained within the fruit. You can't really get it. Before it was covered, now it's open. But shells of a walnut, perhaps the mikara miglu, v'hashta miglu. Beforehand it was open, it was visible, and now it's visible. Nothing changed. I just took out the inside, but the shell remains the shell as it was, and so it was fuel beforehand. It was fuel now. Nothing changed on Shabbos. So perhaps it's good sricha. Therefore, he needs to tell us all three that Rabbi Yehuda is strict in all three cases. Now the Gemara says, even though Rabbi Yehuda claimed that Rav said these halachos, it was an inference of Rabbi Yehuda's, and it wasn't actually explicitly taught by Rav. It wasn't explicitly taught that way, but rather it was an inference. Did Rav, where was they infer it from? From this case. Rav achal tamri v'shada kashyasa lebuchia. Rav ate dates, and he took the pits and he threw them into a stove. Buchia is a type of stove. It's made out of tiles. He threw it into where there would be, it would serve as fuel. Amalei Reb Chia bar Pachti. So Reb Chia said, my son of great ones. Reb Chia was Rav's uncle, and he said to him, son of great ones, connect the biyantiv aser. This what you just did by throwing the pit into the fire would be prohibited on Yom Tov. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda assumed that Rav accepted this opinion, but did he or did he not? Tashama, so come in here. The Chiasa Rav leBavel, when Rav came from Eretz Yisrael, where he studied with Rabbi Chia, and he came to Bavel, where he became the head of the academy, Ochal Tamri v'Shada Kashyasa l'Chiyusa. He took dates, ate the fruit, and tossed the pits to animals to eat. My love, the pasaraisa. Wouldn't you say that this was talking about even fully ripe? It was talking about fully ripe dates, where the pits were a separate piece beforehand, and therefore they don't retain any of the fruit on it. As you know, with dates, sometimes if you have a fresh date that's not fully ripened, the fruit sticks to the pit, like you'll have in some peaches and so on, where the fruit sticks to the pit, and therefore there really is some food left on the pit, and so the pit never becomes muktzah. But wouldn't you be saying that when it says that he threw the pit into to animals as animal feed, that we're talking about where a typical fully ripened date, where the fruit separates well from the pit, and the pit was just pit, no fruit on it. And therefore, it's indicative that he was feeding his animal and handling pits on Yantiv, on Shabbos. So you see, it's not muksa. And that would prove to us that he did not accept the opinion of his uncle Reb Chia that this is muksa. The Gemara says, maybe it's talking about these dates that are unripened, and therefore when you eat the fruit off the pit, some of the fruit remains on it, and therefore it's not muksa because some of the fruit is still attached. And therefore it's still muksa because it's still usable for its original intended purpose. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that says that you're not allowed to use broken vessels as firewood. You're only allowed to use vessels that are not muksa as firewood. Even the adlik b'upurta havali shivri kelim says, I don't understand. As soon as, if you take my case was a wooden spoon. You take a wooden spoon that you're using in your kitchen, so it's still a good vessel. It's not muksa, and you throw it into the fire to be firewood, fuel for your fire. At that point, as soon as it starts burning, it's no longer a kitchen utensil, and now it's a broken vessel, and it should be muksa. So you shouldn't be able to move it in the fire. You shouldn't be able to fan the flames because you're handling and dealing with a muksa item. And when you're turning the coals, you're turning the coals of something that became a non-vessel and became a coal on Shabbos, on Yontif, and that would be a muksa. The Ovid Karabe Masna. So Gemara says, you're right. That's true. However, what he does is he nullifies it like Ramasna taught. Their ovens used to be in their backyards. And a branch falls off a tree. A palm tree is the case over here, but a branch falls off the tree and it falls into your fire pit. So what do? You now have a muktzah item in your fire pit, but you want to make a fire. On Yontif, you're allowed to make a fire. So marbe eitzim muchanim umasikim. So you can add other branches, other kindling over it, around it. So this way it's nullified in the majority of the usable wood. And then you can light the fire. So too over here, if you throw in the wooden spoon, your full vessel, it's talking about that it's batil, it's nullified in the other woods that you're throwing in. Fine. So the first interpretation of our Mishnah was that it's talking about on a yontif, in preparation for Shabbos, and a muksa. The second interpretation said no. The reason why you can't use, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and you may, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva, you may use these wicks that are made of a kerchief or a patch that have been twisted and folded into a wick, is because the question is whether you need to singe it beforehand in preparation for Shabbos, that it burns well or not. Here we're going to have a third opinion. Rav Amnuna Amar, we're actually talking about a small cloth less than 3 by 3, 3 by 3 tefachim. So it's no longer an independent vessel. And we're talking about a rag, something that is not worthy enough of being used as a kerchief. it's larger than 3 by 3, so that it has the value of at least susceptibility to tumah, and it's something. But it's smaller than a normal kerchief, and it's used as a rag, so it doesn't have the value of something else. So what did they use rags for? They used rags to stuff up, to plug holes in the bathhouse. They used rags when they were holding a hot vessel to pour. So they didn't necessarily have a ladle. So if they had a pot that was cooking, they would have rags that would hold the vessel and pour from the vessel. So it was really a rag, not a vessel, not a garment itself. And the machlokas is about that. And this is a machlokas that fits with another machlokas they have in regards to rags. The Tanan, as we learned in a Mishnah, and this is a Mishnah in Kollel, if you have a piece of cloth less than 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, so it can't be a kerchief, and you're using it and you've dedicated it for a rag, such as to plug holes in a bathhouse or to hold your pots, a pot mitten, or to wipe down a mill, regardless of whether it's prepared or not. And the Gemara is going to explain that shortly. Tameh, that's going to be susceptible to tumah. It's still considered a garment. It's a vessel. Rabbi Yeshua says, regardless of whether it's prepared or not, it's not going to count as a vessel, and it's going to be tahor. However, Rabbi Kiva, he says it depends. Min hamuchan tameh. He says if it's designated, it's prepared, meaning it's designated as a vessel, it's tameh. Shalem min hamuchan. If it's not designated as a vessel, tahor, then it is not susceptible to tumah. The Gemara explains what does this mean, a vessel. Everybody agrees. If you took this rag and you threw it in the trash, it's not a vessel anymore. That's been disposed of. It's not a vessel. Now we go on Chav Tes on the base. So what is the question? If you put it inside your drawer and you folded it back in your drawer, everybody holds it's a vessel, because you're showing clearly you intend to keep this as a vessel. So Divrei HaKol Tameh, everybody says it's susceptible to tumah. Where is the machlokas about? Ella only in you threw it behind the door. Sorry, you hung it onto a hook. You threw it onto a hook, or you threw it behind the door. Now, there are three levels of disposing, if you would, a cloth like this. If you put it in the drawer, you clearly indicate that you want it. But what about if I threw it onto a hook? Does that show it's still a vessel to me, or that's garbage already? That's rags. Or one down. I didn't put it on a hook. I just threw it behind the door. Now that's even less indicative of me retaining it as a vessel. That's indicating more that I'm trying to throw it out, that I don't care about it, and it's really rags. If I throw it into the garbage, everybody agrees that's rags. So that's what the machlokas is. So Rabbi Eliezer savar midula zarka ba'ashba, as long as you didn't throw it in the trash, daiti alave, you still intend to use it, and it's considered prepared. So why does he call it not prepared, meaning you don't intend to use it anymore? Because it's, as long as not, it's in regards to being in a drawer, it's not going to be actually usable, intending to use. But the point is that you're showing enough that you still want it, and it still it retains its vessel status, and it's susceptible to tumah. Rabbi Yeshua savar, however, Rabbi Yeshua says he goes to the other extreme. He says if you didn't put it in the drawer, that's not a vessel anymore. Now you've nullified it from a vessel. Now it's just a rag. It's just junk. So why does he call it even from something prepared? meaning the legabe ashba muchanu, even if I didn't throw it in the trash itself, but I retained it in my home. I just didn't put it in the drawer. That's enough to, even though that to some degree indicates I'm prepared to continue using it, but not as a vessel. I don't continue to use it as a vessel, and therefore it's no longer susceptible to tumah unless I put it into the drawer. However, Rabbi Kiva b'talim b'magud savak Rabbi Eliezer. Kiva differentiates. He says if you hung it on a hook, that's like Rabbi Eliezer. That's enough prepared to say that you're retaining it as a vessel susceptible to tumah. But once you threw it behind the door, that's indicative of that. It's no longer to you a vessel. It's just a rag, and it's not susceptible to tumah anymore. And then Rabbi Kiva even agreed to Rabbi Yeshua that even if you hung it on a hook, it's not susceptible to tumah. Mimai. And how do I know that? Since in our Mishnah, what does he call it? He says the thread made of a wick made of a garment. My area, the Tana psilas habeged. Listen, psilas shel beged. He should say a thread of a wick. A thread made of garments. Why does it say that it is a garment? Ha-beged, the garment. My psilas ha-beged, adayim begedu. To tell you that even though that it's still essentially a garment, but since it's a rag that he's using as a rag and he's hanging it on hooks and throwing it behind doors, but he's not putting it away in the drawer, it's no longer a garment, and therefore it's not susceptible to tumah, and therefore it's already considered a wick, and you can use it for your Shabbos. So the machlokes over here, and the third interpretation of the Mishnah is that whether you can use it or not for Shabbos is whether or not it retains its status as a garment and is therefore susceptible to tumah or not. Once you've used it as a rag, it's no longer susceptible to tumah as long as you don't put it away in the garment. In the drawer, and therefore it's not going to be a garment, and you can use it as a wick. Next Mishnah. We are Chav Testament base at the Mishnah. Le'yikav adam shofer shel beitza. A person shall not take an eggshell and make a hole in the eggshell, and this way he can pour oil into the eggshell as a vessel, and then make a hole at the bottom where the oil will drip into the candle. So you have a cup with a wick in it, but you don't want it to burn the oil too quickly. So what you do is you have a slow drip system that you made out of an eggshell with a hole in it. If that eggshell is sitting over the nair, over the candelabra, where the oil is running in, you're not allowed to do that. You put it on top of the candle, so that it should drip in slowly so that it doesn't burn too quickly. And even if it's made of earthenware. Now, essentially, what's the concern here? The problem is, the halacha is, as we saw before, if I take oil that's designated as fuel for a fire, and I take some oil out and I put it into my salad, or I take it out for whatever reason, what I've done is I've diminished the life of this candle. And that's essentially causing the extinguishing of the fire. That's it's going to be a derivative of the prohibition of not extinguishing a fire on Shabbos. And so you can't, you cannot put the wick there, you can't put the eggshell there with the oil in it, lest I may come and take some out. Now, you'd think that's only true by an eggshell. But if I have a earthenware vessel, earthenware vessels were very, especially the ones that we used as candles for oil and for fire, they became very dirty and they were really hard to clean. And so you wouldn't take the oil out of there for your salad. It's disgusting. Nevertheless, even though that it's much less likely that you're going to take any oil out, the Mishnah says, even if it's earthenware, still, you may not put the oil in there to drip into your candle, lest you're going to take some out and use it. However, Rabbi Yehuda matir. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can be lenient and you're allowed to do it. But if it was connected beforehand, meaning it was built in as a part of the candle, that it has a cup above it with a hole, dripping the oil in so that it'll burn slowly, that's permissible. Because it's one vessel, and just as we're not concerned that you're going to take some oil out of the candle itself, so too we're not concerned you're going to take something out of this built-in cup above it. Similarly, it says, don't take a cup and put it side by side with your candle and have a long wick from your candle going into the second cup, and this way you have a reserve fuel. And there too, perhaps you're going to think, oh, that's not the candle itself, and I can take some out for my salad. Because you're putting it there in order to draw some of the oil from the reserve cup into your candle, so then it's designated as fuel for your candle, and therefore if you remove some, you are diminishing the life of this candle. Rabbi Yehuda Mater, and again Rabbi Yehuda says, no concern, we're not concerned that you're going to take any of the oil out for your salad. Utzricha, and I need both of these machlukas, I need both of the cases. The Yashmin and Mishreferes Robeitz, if he had only told you the eggshell, Bahakam Rabbanan, maybe only there the Rabbanan are strict, the Kivan Olem Isa, since it's not disgusting, Asil Stapukimine, maybe you're going to take some oil out. Aval Shacheres, but in the earthenware vessel, the Meisa, it's really disgusting. Maybe they agree to Rabbi Yehuda that we don't have to be concerned you're going to take some oil out, and they permit it. So therefore the Mishnah says, no, even there they disagree. And prohibit. And if it only said the earthenware vessel, maybe there Rabbi Yehuda is lenient because nobody's going to take oil out because it's disgusting. But in the case of the eggshell, maybe he'd agree that you need to be strict that someone's going to take some oil out. Therefore, we needed to say that both of the cases to tell you that the machlokas applies in both cases. And if we had said these two, maybe Rabbi Yehuda only said it there because there's no separation. They're sitting next to each other, one on top of each other. But in a vessel, you have one cup next to another, a bowl next to the candle, and a long wick running from one to the other. There it's a separate vessel. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda also agrees that you have to be strict, that people are going to think of it as separate and may take some oil out. Therefore, we tell you, no, Rabbi Yehuda is going to be lenient there as well. And if he had only said that case, and maybe that's the only case that the Chachamim are strict about, because people think of it as a separate vessel and may take some oil out. But in the first two, where they're really, it seems like one vessel. Therefore, the Chachamim would agree to Rabbi Yehuda and were lenient. Therefore, we need to tell you that in all three cases, the Chachamim are strict and say you can't do this because maybe you're going to take some oil out and use it, and that's going to diminish the flame. And Rabbi Yehuda says no such concern, you're allowed to do. The Mishnah further said, if it was formed together from the start, it's permissible. Tanaba, however, the Brisa says, that if you glued it together with sid or charsis types of lime or whatever it is that you're going to attach it with, it's permissible. Meaning, it seems like not that it was originally made this way, but you before Shabbos just glued it together. But we said in our Mishnah, it says that the smith who made it that way. My yotzer kein yotzer. All it means is that it's smith together. It's the verb of smithing, right? It's you did it like a smith that you put it together. Gemara continues with concerns that our Mishnah had and whether this applies universally. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, "Pamachas shavtinu ba'aliyas beis nitza." Once we made Shabbos. I was a guest for Shabbos in the house of Nitza Balud in Lud. And they brought this, what the Mishnah prohibited, an eggshell with a hole in it. And they, as for our candle, they did that and they set it up for us with oil and they lit it that way. And Rabbi Tarfon and the elders were there, and they didn't say anything to us. It seems like the halacha is not like our Mishnah. From there, saying that you're bringing proof from there. Shani beis nitza, there's a reason here. the reason the Chachamim didn't say anything over there is because they knew that they were very diligent and very careful. And the base Nitzah, in the house of Nitzah, no one would touch a candle on Shabbos. He knew that. But in general, we have to be concerned. People may not know. Similarly, we have a case that Abin Tzipora Gora Safsala Balisa the Shisha the Elam Rabbi Yitzchak Ber Elazar. The Gemara is going to tell us another few cases of concern that were done in front of Chachamim and whether they allowed it to pass because someone was diligent or not. We'll see that tomorrow morning. Be'ezras Hashem. Thank you so much for participating. I know that